There are nights that taste like betrayal, and for Diego Alvarez, it began with the smell of burnt tortillas. He was 21, sleeves rolled, eyes bright with dreams bigger than the tiny taco shop his cousins owned on the outskirts of San Diego. They used to laugh together while chopping onions, telling each other that one day their tacos would cross borders, maybe even oceans. But that night, laughter turned to whispers, whispers turned to plans, and before Diego could wipe the salsa from his hands, he was out. "You're slowing us down," his cousin Mateo had said, tossing him his apron like a scrap. "You care too much about recipes and not enough about sales." They locked the door behind him while he still stood outside, hearing the oil crackle, the bell jingle, the sound of a door that would never open for him again. He walked home under the glow of neon signs, his fingers smelling of chili and hurt, and whispered to himself, "I'll build something they can't ignore." But dreams cost more than promises, and all Diego had were debts and a head full of flavor. He started working nights at a food truck, flipping cheap tortillas, listening to truckers complain about bland tacos, learning every spice, every trick, every way a flavor could change a man's mood. His dream was never revenge at first, it was survival. But pain has a way of fermenting into purpose. He studied everything, marketing posters, pricing boards, even how streetlights hit a sign differently after midnight. He noticed that the world didn't just buy food. It bought feeling. It bought identity, rebellion, something that said, "This is me." Diego started sketching logos on napkins, one of them a cracked bell with a chili wrapped around it. He didn't know then that the logo would become a revolution. For months he lived on borrowed coffee and leftover tortillas, sleeping behind the food truck, writing business plans on crumpled receipts. One day he convinced his friend Rosa, a college student in marketing, to help him brand his future dream. "What's your name going to be?" she asked. He thought for a second, smiled bitterly, and said, "I was thrown out when the bell rang. Let's call it Taco Bell." She laughed, but Diego didn't. The name wasn't a joke. It was a vow. With 20 borrowed dollars and an old steel pan, he set up a small taco stand near a bus stop. He built it from scrap wood, painted it purple and orange, colors no restaurant dared to use. He wanted it loud, unapologetic, impossible to ignore. He started selling one taco at a time, giving out free samples to commuters, each bite spiced with defiance. People started talking, not about him, but about that crazy taco guy whose food made them feel alive. He didn't sell just tacos. He sold rebellion in a shell. Soon college kids started lining up, calling his food party fuel, posting photos online before that was even a trend. He stayed up every night adjusting sauces, finding the perfect mix of creamy and spicy that hit like adrenaline. His mantra became cheap, fast, fun. Rosa helped him spread flyers with the slogan, "Live Más," meaning live more. It wasn't just a phrase, it was an attitude. Diego began to attract a new crowd, dreamers, musicians, skateboarders, kids who wanted something different. He paid them not in cash but in tacos, asking them to paint his stall, design crazy signs, hand out food. It was never perfect, but it was alive. And in that mess, a brand was born. Months later, his cousin saw a post about him on a small food blog. The headline read, "The new street taco king, Diego Alvarez brings spice to the night." They laughed, dismissing it as a phase, but Diego was already thinking bigger. He wanted a real shop. He went to every bank in town, every investor who'd listen, but no one trusted a kid with no degree and an idea too colorful for corporate suits. One old banker told him, "Fast food doesn't need personality, kid. It needs consistency." Diego smiled, thanked him, and walked out. "Consistency kills dreams," he muttered. He sold his food truck and borrowed money from Rosa's uncle, who believed in him after tasting his tacos. "You've got fire, mijo," the man said. "Don't let anyone tell you to cool it down." With that loan, Diego opened his first Taco Bell diner, a 20x20 FT shack with neon lights, murals, and a bell that rang every time someone ordered. He trained his staff like soldiers of flavor. "We're not just selling food," he told them. "We're giving people a reason to smile at midnight." He invented the crunch wrap, a wrap that stayed crispy even when reheated, because he knew his audience. College kids eating at 2 a.m. He built loyalty, one messy night at a time. Success wasn't instant. Some nights he sold 2 tacos, some nights none. Haters called it Too weird, too spicy, too loud. But Diego's rule was simple: no day without improvement. He experimented daily, taking notes on what sold fastest, what colors caught attention, how sound and smell pulled people in. He discovered that if you played upbeat music and fried something crunchy at the right moment, it made heads turn. He didn't need marketing data. He had instincts. He'd watch how people reacted, tweaking everything: the lighting, menu, jokes on the wall. Every customer felt like part of something exclusive. Then one night, fate came ringing. A famous food vlogger from Los Angeles stopped by. She was lost, hungry, and skeptical. Diego served her a taco with triple chili and a smile that said, "Just wait." She took one bite, coughed from the spice, laughed, and said on camera, "I think I just found my new addiction." That clip went viral before viral was even a thing. Within weeks, Taco Bell had lines stretching around the block. Diego expanded, opening 3 more stands, then a restaurant downtown. His slogan, "Live Más," became a mantra. His cousins? They were struggling to keep their dull taco shop alive. They visited one night pretending to be customers, stunned by the flashing lights, the crowd chanting, "Bell time," every time a taco was served. They didn't even recognize him behind the counter, wearing his purple apron and a grin that could light up a city. When he finally looked up and saw them, he said calmly, "Hope the tacos taste familiar." That night, Mateo went home in silence, but Diego wasn't satisfied. He knew success built on anger burns out fast, so he turned revenge into purpose. He started hiring young kids from poor neighborhoods, teaching them not just how to cook, but how to believe. "Anyone can flip a tortilla," he'd say, "but only dreamers can flip destiny." The media began calling him the Taco Visionary. He expanded again, franchising across California, then Arizona, then Nevada. Everywhere he went, he told the same story. Don't let rejection define you. Let it refine you. He became the voice of the underdogs, the street chefs, the ones told they'd never make it. By year 3, Taco Bell was more than a food chain. It was a rebellion. He was invited to business conferences, offered partnerships, and courted by big investors who once ignored him. But Diego never forgot his cousin's words. "You care too much about recipes and not enough about sales." So now he cared about both, and more. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A corporate group offered to buy his brand. They wanted the name, the logo, the menu, everything, for millions. For the first time, Diego hesitated. What if they ruin the soul of it? He asked Rosa. She smiled and said, "Then make sure your soul echoes forever." He sold the company but kept a silent share. The investors rebranded slightly, expanded globally, but kept the name, Taco Bell. The world would never know the full story. But every time the bell rang in a store, Diego smiled somewhere, remembering the night they threw him out. He didn't build just a business. He built a legacy of spice and survival. And yet one thing remained undone. He wanted closure, not money, not fame, just one simple meal shared with his cousins. So one evening, after years of empire building, he invited them to dinner. They hesitated, expecting an ambush, but curiosity won. When they arrived, they found a quiet restaurant. Not flashy, not loud, just Diego, sitting with 3 plates of tacos. "You once told me flavor doesn't sell," he said softly. "Taste this." They ate, eyes widening as the familiar flavors hit them, but richer, deeper, alive. Mateo whispered, "You made this?" Diego nodded. "I just followed the recipe you threw away." He didn't need to say more. The silence that followed was heavy with regret, pride, and awe. Outside, the neon bell glowed brighter than ever. Inside, Diego Alvarez leaned back, listening to the soft chime as a customer walked in and ordered the food that changed his life. No headings, no breaks, pure storytelling. Diego's journey from success to legacy. When success becomes too loud, it starts echoing into places you never planned to reach, and for Diego Alvarez, the echo of Taco Bell began to rumble across borders faster than he could believe. Within months of signing the corporate deal, billboards were rising in Los Angeles, Miami, and even London, neon bells glowing in foreign skies. The new investors pumped in millions, turning his rebellious food stand into a polished empire, but they couldn't recreate his fire, that handmade soul that had made the brand magnetic. Diego watched from the sidelines, not bitter, just curious. He no longer worked behind the counter, but every flavor still carried his fingerprint. He began consulting quietly for other young entrepreneurs, teaching them the same principles that had saved him: vision, identity, and madness in equal measure. His favorite line in those sessions was always the same: "You can copy my menu, but you'll never copy my hunger." His story had already become a legend among small business dreamers. The taco guy who defied his bloodline. Magazines called him the Chili King, but the name felt hollow to him. He missed the clang of the bell, the street laughter, the smell of fresh tortillas in oil. Fame was louder, but it wasn't warmer. In the meantime, his cousin's taco shop, once the pride of their family, was fading into irrelevance. The customers who once lined up at their counter were now eating across the street at a shiny Taco Bell. Mateo and Luis tried to fight back, renaming their place The Real Tacos, claiming on local TV that big corporations steal from family traditions. But no one listened. People wanted excitement, branding, energy, things Diego had mastered and they had mocked. Watching their bitterness turn public hurt Diego more than he expected. Revenge, he realized, had turned into pity. Still, he refused to gloat. "Let the food talk," he told Rosa, who by now had become his marketing head and closest friend. Together, they began planning something new, something bigger than just tacos. Diego wanted to return to the core idea that had started everything: flavor as identity. He dreamed of creating a culinary school for underprivileged kids, teaching them how to build businesses from their roots. "Imagine an army of chefs with purpose," he said. "Not working for brands, but creating them." Rosa smiled, recognizing that spark, the same one that had once built an empire from a wooden stall. To fund his dream, Diego traveled across states, giving talks at universities and business events. He didn't use slides or jargon, he used stories. He'd walk on stage with a taco in his hand and say, "This is the result of betrayal, hunger, and love cooked in the same pan." Students adored him. Investors lined up. Soon, the Bell Foundation was born, dedicated to helping young culinary dreamers who'd been told they weren't good enough. Within 2 years, it had funded over 100 street vendors, small bakeries, and food trucks. He saw himself in every one of them, the desperation, the belief that one bite could change their fate. "The world doesn't need more chains," he said in an interview. "It needs more stories." Yet even as he grew into a symbol of purpose, Diego's past wouldn't let go. One evening, he received a message from Mateo, the same cousin who had thrown him out. It was just 5 words: "Can we talk?" "I'm sorry." Diego stared at the message for hours, unsure if it was genuine or guilt-driven. He eventually replied, "Meet me at the old shop." The place was barely surviving now, the sign cracked, the smell stale. Mateo was waiting outside, looking older, smaller. "I ruined us," he admitted. "You were right about everything. We chased money. You chased meaning." Diego didn't respond right away. Instead, he handed him a takeout box, a Taco Bell special. "Taste it," he said. Mateo took a bite, his eyes watering not from spice but from shame. "It's ours," he whispered. "It always was," Diego nodded. "I never stole your dream, Mateo. I just didn't let you bury mine." They talked for hours about family, failure, and forgiveness. In the end, Diego offered him something unexpected, a chance to manage one of his foundation's training kitchens. "Teach the kids what not to do," he said. Mateo agreed, tears breaking through pride. That night, the brothers who had once split over tacos reunited over purpose. But Diego's journey was far from over. As Taco Bell expanded globally, the corporate suits began altering recipes, cutting costs, replacing real ingredients with cheaper alternatives. Diego felt it like betrayal all over again, not from family this time, but from business itself. "They're killing the soul," he told Rosa. "The flavor doesn't laugh anymore." She urged him to move on, but he couldn't. He knew millions were eating something that didn't carry the love he'd built into it. So he did what he did best. He started again, from scratch. He launched a secret brand under a pseudonym, calling it El Fuego Libre, the Free Fire. It was small, hidden, and wild, a nod to his roots. No corporate backing, no ads, just word of mouth and flavor. Within months, whispers began in the food community. "There's a new taco in town that tastes like rebellion." Critics said it reminded them of the early days of Taco Bell, raw and soulful. Diego stayed anonymous, letting the mystery build. Customers lined up, some swearing they could feel the same spark that once changed fast food forever. When the press finally discovered it was Diego behind it, the internet exploded. Articles called it the return of the bell maker. The corporations panicked. They offered him massive buyouts to merge El Fuego Libre into Taco Bell, but he refused. "You can't buy authenticity twice," he said. Instead, he used the attention to push for a global movement supporting street food entrepreneurs. "Let's ring a bell for everyone who ever cooked with passion," he announced at a global summit. His speech was streamed across continents, inspiring thousands of food startups. The bell had become a symbol not of revenge anymore, but of freedom, the sound of people taking back their dreams. Meanwhile, Rosa proposed something bold, a global Live Mass festival, bringing together small food creators from around the world to celebrate flavor and culture. Diego loved it. The event launched in Mexico City, drawing chefs from 50 countries. The crowd was electric. Music, colors, stories, food everywhere. In the center of the festival, under a giant neon bell, Diego stood with a mic and said, "Flavor is our language, and today, the world finally speaks it." Cameras flashed. The crowd roared, and somewhere in the chaos, Mateo stood with tears in his eyes, clapping for the brother he had once thrown away. By year 10, Diego Alvarez was no longer just the founder of Taco Bell or the creator of El Fuego Libre. He had become a myth, a reminder that no betrayal can stop belief that burns hot enough. Documentaries called him the bell that never broke. Schools taught his journey as a business case study. His name stood alongside global legends who had built empires from dust. But when reporters asked him what he was most proud of, he never mentioned money, awards, or fame. He'd always smile softly and say that I didn't lose my flavor. In the end, when Diego walked through a city street at night, seeing young people eating tacos under glowing bells, he'd pause and listen, not to the noise of success, but to the laughter, the sizzling oil, the heartbeat of the dream he once cooked from pain. Somewhere far from the lights, an old rusty bell still hung in his first taco stand, silent but alive, a witness to everything he'd overcome. Diego Alvarez didn't just create a food empire, he created a legacy that said one truth louder than any slogan: the world will always ring for those who refuse to stop cooking their dreams.